Let's be honest, you've seen the ads everywhere. Virtual private networks, VPNs, they've just exploded. They all promise this super simple, one-click fix for all your online privacy worries. But what is really going on behind that big connect button? We're going to peel back all that marketing and look at the actual evidence to find out if you're as private as you think you are.
So let's just start with the kind of promises these companies make. I mean, look at this one from CyberGhost. Turn yourself digitally invisible. Wow, that's a powerful idea, right? The thought that you can just wrap yourself in this digital invisibility cloak and be safe from, hackers, advertisers, all of it.
And, that really brings us to the big question we're trying to answer here. Can a commercial VPN actually deliver on these huge claims of total privacy and anonymity? I mean, are we really invisible when we use one?
To get to the bottom of this, we're not just going to read their marketing copy. Nope. We're digging into a really serious investigation from Consumer Reports. They actually partnered up with university researchers to put these services under a technical microscope.
And this was not your average speed test, okay? The researchers used this specialized tool called VPNalyzer. It was designed specifically to poke and prod at the security and privacy features of VPNs so they could see what was really happening under the hood. And they didn't mess around with obscure services either. As you can see, they put 16 of the biggest names in the business through the ringer. So there's a pretty good chance your VPN is on this list.
All right, let's get right into what they found. And we'll start with the most basic promise of any VPN: security. Does it actually keep your data safe, especially when things go wrong?
So, the investigation zeroed in on this critical safety feature that pretty much every VPN talks about, the kill switch. Its job sounds simple, right? If your VPN connection suddenly dies, the kill switch is supposed to slam the brakes on your internet access so your real IP address doesn't get exposed.
And this is just a perfect example of the gap between the promise and the reality. During the early tests, some kill switches just failed, flat out didn't work. The report found that services like VPN and Speedify actually leaked user traffic when the connection dropped, doing the exact opposite of what they're supposed to do.
And the problems didn't stop there. Kaspersky's VPN? It failed a DNS leak test. Think of that like a little crack in the tunnel that lets your browsing history leak out to your internet provider. F-Secure Freedom failed something called a WebRTC leak test, which is another well-known issue that can just reveal your real IP address even when the VPN is on. And BetterNet showed signs of an IPv6 leak, yet another way your real location can get out. So yeah, this digital shield has some pretty serious cracks.
Okay, now let's talk about the real heart of VPN marketing, the no logs policy. This is supposed to be the ultimate privacy promise, but is it for real?
You see statements just like this one from ProtonVPN on basically every provider's website. They all swear they don't keep any records of what you're doing online. This is like the bedrock of their whole privacy argument. But the investigation came at this from a totally different angle.
See, instead of trying to figure out what's on the company's servers, which, let's face it, is impossible for an outsider to check, the researchers looked a lot closer to home. They actually analyzed the temporary log files that the VPN apps themselves were leaving behind right on your own machine.
And what they found was pretty shocking. Even with VPNs that have these super strict no-logs policies, their own apps were storing incredibly sensitive data locally, completely unencrypted in plain text. IPVanish stored your username, your original IP, the VPN's IP, and timestamps. ProtonVPN stored the username. Surfshark stored the user's email address. I mean, if anyone ever got physical access to your computer, that no-logs policy would be totally meaningless. So the technical flaws are one thing. But the investigation discovered the problems go way deeper. They uncovered this whole industry-wide pattern of, confusing marketing and really concentrated, sometimes kind of shadowy corporate ownership. The report found that so many top VPNs use language that is, to be generous, misleading. You see terms like military-grade encryption all the time. It sounds super impressive, but security experts will tell you it's a meaningless marketing phrase. And promises of unrivaled anonymity? That's just not true. A VPN can't stop things like browser fingerprinting or tracking cookies that follow you on the web no matter what your IP address is.
Okay, now here is where things get really interesting. You might think you're choosing between dozens of different independent companies, but it turns out many of the biggest brands are all owned by one company, Kape Technologies. And Kape has let's say, a controversial past. Before they got into the privacy game, they were a company called Crossrider, and they distributed ad injection software. You know, the kind of stuff that forces ads into your web browser.
And Kape didn't waste any time cornering the market. They bought up huge players like CyberGhost, then Private Internet Access, and most recently ExpressVPN. They basically created a privacy empire that has its roots in the advertising industry.
And that consolidation leads to another massive problem: huge conflicts of interest. The investigation found that Kape Technologies also owns major VPN review sites, like VPN Mentor. So the company that's independently reviewing and ranking the VPNs is the very same company that owns many of the top-rated products. You see the problem here? So with all of this stuff, security holes, misleading marketing, shady ownership, what are we supposed to do? I mean, is there even such a thing as a trustworthy VPN?
Well, the good news is, yeah, the report wasn't all doom and gloom. It also pointed out a handful of services that consistently did well across the board, which proves that it is possible to run a VPN service the right way, ethically and responsibly.
So here are the top performers. IVPN got praise for its consistent public audits and really honest, ethical marketing. Mullvad really stood out for its incredible commitment to user privacy. They require almost no personal information from you to sign out. And then there's Mozilla VPN, which is actually built on Mullvad's server network, so it gets all the benefits of that same trusted tech and strong privacy policies.
And this basically gives you a fantastic toolkit to judge any VPN for yourself. So instead of just falling for the hype, you can look for actual proof. Is the code open source so anybody can look at it? Has it gone through public third-party audits? Is their marketing actually honest? And do you know exactly who you're trusting with your data? You know, when it's all said and done, the biggest takeaway here is that a VPN is not some magic shield. It can be a really useful tool for specific things, like protecting your connection on public Wi-Fi, but it's just one piece of a much bigger privacy puzzle. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. Beyond just turning on a VPN, what's the next step we can all take to really own our digital privacy?